Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is the Governing Board regular meeting, Thursday, October 21st. And I'd like, if you are able, to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we do have a quorum. Tim Hurley is, we're trying to reach him on the phone, but currently is not with us, so we'll continue to try for that. The first item of business is the approval of the minutes from September 23rd. Were there any corrections, any changes?
I move we.
Okay, we'll accept them as written. And we also had two special meetings, one in August on the 20th, and for director appointments. Were there any changes to those minutes? Seeing none, then we will accept those as written. And we had another meeting in July 30th, with our grass seed issue. Are there any changes to those or corrections to those minutes? Seeing none, we will accept those as written. Okay, the first item of business is I'd like to call Dean Llewellyn to the podium and our general manager, Bill Schwinn. We have a pleasant experience, and that's going to occur, and we'd like to make sure we record that.
For some.
From the, yes, for us, from ARC. So go ahead, I will turn this over to Dean.
Okay. My name is Dean Llewellyn, and I'm the president of the Auto Restoration Club of Sun City West this year. I'm here along with past president Tom Jones and vice president Dave Meyer and a couple other guys from the club, and to present our 2021 payment of $40,000 on the outstanding loan for the ARC building and shops. You know, early this year, I and the ARC board and most of the members were sweating bullets trying to figure out how we were going to be able to make this year's payment when our 2021 car show and swap meet were canceled due to COVID protocols. That annual car show and swap meet plus our annual car raffle are our two biggest fundraisers of the year. Then in April, one of our member families issued a $10,000 matching challenge to our membership to raise some funds for this year's loan payment. Well, in August, we met and surpassed that challenge threshold, and we raised $11,908.05. Every nickel counted. We then sold a couple of long-term project vehicles, a 1959 Ford Thunderbird and a 1933 American Austin Bantam. The T-Bird was a multi-year project that we'd used as a teaching tool for the Dysart High School Auto Tech class students during its restoration. And the Bantam was donated by a local family, and it arrived in baskets and boxes of parts and pieces. But we were able to actually find the original owner's family in Utah and returned the Bantam to the actual barn it originally was stored in for some 60 years. These three efforts has made it possible for me to be able to present to Bill this check for $40,000 for our 2021 loan payment. I'm so very thankful and happy to do so. That's the real one. That's the real one. You can get that to Pete. You can get that to Pete.
In case you want to come up here, share a little photograph opportunity with us. I'm going to get you right in the middle of us. I was smiling.
All right.
Thank you. And thank you.
Thank you very much, ARC. ARC is a 501c3, and they have different rules in terms of fundraising and activities that they do, which allows them to be able to earn money that they have so graciously returned to us on their loan. Okay, the next item of business is our EOM reports. Each month, every committee provides a report to the governing board, and so those are included in the packet. Roberta?
I move to accept the October 2021 end-of-month reports as filed information.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we have accepted those reports. Then the next item is that each month I have asked one of our committee chairs to do a little bit of a review on their particular committee, and I've asked Donna to do that this time because the Charter Clubs Committee has been very, very busy. Donna?
Thank you, Madam President. The Charter Clubs Committee met October 5th. All committee members were present. We established our committee goals, which were increased club participation in committee meetings, review RR&Ps for redundancy and to be more concise, implementation of association software, suncitywestclubs.com website updated, and final review of the RR&Ps for association attorney and professional CPA. A task was assigned and given to Joel Piakowski and Mary Kay Vidal for RR&Ps review for redundancy and to be more concise. Committee moved forward to the governing board workshop loan forgiveness of pickleball, tennis, and stained glass, rip and sew request, and clay club request. Club's purpose, space, and activity similarities will be discussed at our next meeting, November 2nd. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions about her report? Okay, thank you, Donna. Then Katie, one of the goals that our governing board had last year, being rather forced into it, was to put our meetings on YouTube. So our goal was to make sure that we retained things that we thought were positive. And I believe this is in that category. So Katie, tell us about the results.
Thank you, Madam President and directors and members. We're excited to show these figures. You look around the room, we have maybe 40 people, and that includes the directors and staff. And then you look at the numbers of the views on YouTube, they're well exceeding that. And as we go down on the list in front of you, they're aging chronologically, and you'll see the views get higher over time. So people go and look at the videos over time, so they'll increase. Obviously, the workshops and the regular board meetings tend to have higher views. The Charter Clubs Committee meetings have been a big topic this year, so they tend to have a lot of views as well. This one, I think down here, Governing Board Elections Special Committee, that's exceedingly high for traditionally the election committee has nobody attend, nobody pay attention to it. It's just every year we have our election. Obviously, it's a very hot topic this year with 111 views of that meeting. So that's a interesting thing to watch, that's going to be probably a big topic election this year. And then, it goes up from there, almost 200 people viewing the regular meeting last month, up to 300 at the workshop, and then even 400 at the special meeting. So it's just good to see that turnout. It's exciting to see more and more people getting involved in the board meetings. And if this digital format is a way for them to do that, that's great. We're also excited to announce that beginning in November, we're going to be able to provide one wide shot camera view at the committee meetings. So we won't be able to do the tight shots or jumping from person to person. We don't have the personnel to staff the cameras like we do for the board meetings and the workshops, but we will go from the view you see on the screen to one wide shot of the committees up on the dia. So that'll be helpful for the audience to just see the people who are speaking. So, any questions?
Sharon?
Did I understand you correctly, Katie, that this is like accumulation? It's not just on that one day?
Yes, it's over time.
Thank you.
That was my question.
Any other questions?
Yeah, we do view likes as well. You don't get a lot of interaction live during a meeting. They typically watch it, or they'll come back a couple days later and watch it. But, you know, if they really like it, or we have a couple viewers that tend to like all the videos, so that's kind of funny to see. And we do have some live comments as well, so that's good.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
thank you, Katie. Then the filings for August and September. Ann?
Yes, the August and September 2021 financials have been reviewed and accepted by the Budget and Finance Committee. They have been filed.
Thank you. Under new business, the cell tower report. Russ Boston?
Thank you, Madam President. Good morning, everyone. So as you know, we were reached out to by a contractor who is looking to add additional cell towers in the community. So Carl and I ran around with this map and picked out some areas that we thought could house such a thing, sent it to them, and then they chose their preferred locations numbered 1 through 3. They had a few areas that were X'd out because they need, I guess, 80 feet of clear space between our property and the next property. So that being said, you can see area number 2, which is right behind the social hall where the landscape place is. We originally put it next more towards Hillcrest Golf Course. They wanted it further up towards the middle. And with the remodel that's being proposed with the landscape addition, we already have plans for that space. I did, however, meet with them on site to go over all 3 of these locations the other day. Originally, they did not like our choice over by Hillcrest Golf Course, but once we showed them the site, they reconsidered, so that is now now we have 3 active sites that are possibilities. So Properties did a walkthrough this past Tuesday. We did look at site number 3, which is between Lawn Bowl and Tennis. That's the social hall. There's Lawn Bowl and Tennis. We will cover the other 2 locations next Tuesday, and then they will be faced with, what we're looking for is a yes at either none of them, all 3 of them, or site-specific. We're only getting 1 and possibly none, depending on their decision in the end of all this. All we're doing is saying, yes, we'd be interested on letting you put a cell tower space in these places, whether it be 1 or all 3 of them. Any questions?
Go ahead, Sharon.
Sharon?
Russ, sorry, I can't turn around. On the site, how long does it take for the county approve it if you take 1 and 2, either 1 or 2?
That I'm not sure of, because they have their own process. So it's not our process. All we're doing is saying yes or no to the sites, and then they have to go back to the cell company. They decide as to whether or not they even want our site. So they have a lot of forks in the fire, I guess, you might say. And then they get to make the ultimate decision if they're even interested in putting one at our site.
So if we picked 1 or 2, that wouldn't hold anything up as far from their perspective?
No.
Okay, thank
No.
you.
You're welcome.
Sue?
Yes, Jim?
So I'm new to this situation. Have we been told what the dollar amount might be to the rec center, to the association, if this were to come about?
I don't know that they've been in discussions. We could only compare it to other ones that we have in the community. And that's dollars. That's more of a Pete thing than it is a me thing.
Yeah. Okay.
So for us, we found out afterwards that it's T-Mobile, which is who we just switched over to, and our signal, I don't know any T-Mobile users here. You can go from 5G to no G really quick. So it's a benefit to us in an operational standpoint. So that's my interest in it. But I don't want to sacrifice putting something ugly up anywhere.
Yeah.
So we're being very open as to what this is going to look like. And for every location, except for the one between the tennis and lawn bowl, they will use existing walls. So there'll only be 3 walls that'll blend right in, and then you'll have this forever green, cosmetic looking palm tree like you've seen at other places.
Doesn't take any water either.
That's right. And it doesn't require trimming. Any other questions? Thank you.
I have one more question.
Yes, Jim.
So the negotiations would go, so we say, let's go with one of these three, then the negotiation starts for both longevity of contract. Typically, it would be 100 years. What does it typically go? Is that it, Pete? My recollection is they're long.
Yeah, I think Russ alluded to the answer that the contractor gave us, which was they have to evaluate, they could be looking at 5 other sites. And so they have to evaluate what the cost is for running fiber, electrical, building, all those things are going to factor in. Length of the contract that we're willing to do is another factor. Price that we're asking, any escalators. So we're very early on, but I got somewhat the commitment that she was going to have probably no less than what we're currently getting on the other 5 towers.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Audience, please come up to the microphone and identify yourself and your rec number.
Bill Weaver, 124087. You said that this is T-Mobile, you believe. If Verizon or someone else are they allowed to go on these same towers? Are these multiple use towers, or what are the requirements for this? If Verizon then wanted one, would they have to come up with a proposal and then we get another tower for the next person, or how does this work?
Most cell tower locations have multiple use on the tower itself. It would belong to T-Mobile, and then they would rent the space below theirs on the same tower, so that you wouldn't have additional towers. Just their equipment would be below them. So it's kind of like getting the best seat at a concert or a play, and then the poor guy behind you, he's got to look at the back of your head. That's kind of the way it works with the towers.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, Russ.
Thank you.
Next item of business is loan forgiveness. Bill Schwinn.
Thank you, Sue. Members of the board and the audience, welcome today. I just want to talk a little bit briefly about where we're going and how we're moving along is trying to clean up a lot of the 501c7 issues that we've been having with our club and back to compliance within the world of the IRS. So within our existing bylaws, it supports the ability to forgive loans because the general manager's authority over the clubs has granted authority to make decisions of a similar nature related to expenditures or other items less than $50,000 and to make non-budgeted repairs up to 1/4 or 1% of the gross revenues of our association. So what we're looking at today are a couple of issues that have come up since we've been tackling this issue, particularly with three clubs that have had engagements with the association for financial upkeep, per se. But our bylaws talk about the general manager and the powers that we have as far as accounting records go and keeping accordance with the GAAP principles as far as accounting goes. We do that. We receive audits every year, and we fly a very high flag when those reports are done. But our bylaws also stipulate that no contracts over $50,000 and no longer than a 1-year period are to exist. And our policies, and it also states that contracts longer than 1 year need to be specified in our bylaws that our governing board is allowed to authorize longer than a year, but those are restricted. Those are typically construction contracts, public utilities, service agreements for communication and computers, that has a 3-year window, casualty and liability insurance, 3 years, pest control, office maintenance equipment for 5, financial auditing for 5, and employee health care for 2. Those are what our policies and our bylaws stipulate as far as any kind of extension contract longer than a year. However, we do have language in our policies in FA07 that talks about advertising. And only the general manager is authorized to enter or sign into contracts with advertisers for a period not to exceed 3 years for the purpose of advertising. So there's a little bit of a twerk in the language between bylaws and policies that we still need to look at. But when it comes to advertising, this is how a couple of these clubs got into a little bit of trouble out of compliance with the IRS, outside revenues. Within the contracts that we have with a few of our clubs, there's clauses in there that are titled force majeure. Force majeure is a common clause within contracts that essentially frees parties from liability or obligation when an extraordinary event or circumstance beyond the control of the parties, such as a legal change that prevents one or both parties from fulfilling their obligations. We've experienced that. Compliance with the IRS. So in dealing with these clubs on an individual basis, Casey and I have met, I don't know, face-to-face with about 102 clubs dealing with their ongoing efforts. The vast majority, 90%, are doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. We just need to clean up on a few. So when it comes to the 501c7s, pickleball is one. There was an agreement between the Rec Center Association and pickleball that was entered into in 2016. And that was for the addition of 8 new courts to be located at the R.H. Johnson Center. The pickleball club agreed to reimburse the recreation centers $300,561 within a 10-year period. They've done exceptionally well fulfilling their obligation. Right now, the balance sits at $76,000 and change. Remarkable, actually. But in keeping in accordance with the IRS tax code related to social clubs classified as C7s, nonprofit organizations, the Rec Center would like to use the revenues from 2 existing pickleball facility naming rights agreements, one for Sands and one for the Liberty Courts, to retire the outstanding loan balance. This will take a little time, but the current value of the pickleball naming rights agreements will cover the $76,000. The Sands contract expires in 2028, and hold your breath, the Liberty Court contract will expire in 2038. So at that point, we'll be reimbursed. So that's a good thing. Let's move on to the tennis courts. Again, in 2016, the association advanced the tennis club $57,155 for the addition of a new tennis court where 3 pickleball and 1 platform tennis court existed. The tennis court club made an initial payment of $23,000 and has 10 years to repay the balance. During that time, the tennis club developed a $25,000 sponsorship agreement with Mimos. And Mimos is still responsible for $4,000 a year through the year of 2023. That'll gain us another $8,000 toward the club's balance, and that would leave the club after the Mimos contract a balance of $9,155. And that basically are the unforeseeable circumstances due to advertising that really prohibits the tennis club for repayment of that loan. Lastly, we have stained glass. And stained glass crafters' space expansion commitment was agreed upon by the Rec Center president and general manager and stained glass board members back in November of 2018. That agreement was for $50,000 reimbursement over a 10-year period for a 1,500 square foot expansion to the craft room at Palm Ridge. To date, the expansion was completed quite nicely, and the club has provided $20,000 thus far, leaving a balance of $30,000. But due to the restrictions on outside revenue derived from craft sales, the ability for the club to offset payments has been eliminated. Again, the unforeseen circumstances back to force majeure. But the unique thing within the agreement with stained glass or the tennis courts or the pickleball program is that of enforcement. These are chartered clubs with us, but there's no language within either of the existing contracts or the agreements that mention any provisions related to enforcement or repercussion if these clubs fail to pay. And so agreements gotten into years ago affect current members today. So if there was a lack of payment, there's really no language in these contracts as to what to do. I don't foresee us closing the clubs down, penalizing people who had no absolute involvement in any of these agreements. So moving forward, a few years ago when I arrived, we were knee-deep in the middle of space allocation. And recent capital improvements to satisfy club needs were handled. We've made improvements to the Palo Verde Patchers facility. We've made improvements to the Weavers Club, the yoga studio, card rooms, computer room, agricultural club site, the garden club greenhouse, and the metal shop. None of these clubs have agreements for any kind of payback or commitments of financial kickback to the association for these improvements. These were based on need. These were based on clubs growing and the facilities going And that's the way we proceed forward at this particular point. So based on the foregoing and the weight of the related provisions in the bylaw documents and the force majeure language within the contract are all in favor of the general manager's ability to forgive these club loans, which are all under $50,000, well within our bylaws provision. And moving forward and assembling this year's upcoming budget, it is the general manager's recommendation and direction to proceed in that direction. And this is really just a shedding light on this to be completely out in front and alerting everyone of our decision. And I appreciate your support and any comments you'd like. Thank you.
Okay, comments? Sharon?
In regards to the IRS, are there any implications for either the rec center or the clubs if we remove the costs?
According to our attorney at this point, no. We do have a scheduled meeting with our legal representation as well as a professional CPA that basically focuses on associations similar to us to get a handful of questions answered, that being one. But we are obviously looking out for what's best for the association from a tax perspective and any kind of repercussions, but we're working on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions? Ann?
As I understand it, with pickleball, that will eventually be repaid with these naming rights.
That is correct.
So why would we want to write that off?
We're not.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. That will be, that $78,000 owed will be paid back to us over time.
Okay, so we're only talking about tennis?
Yeah, it'd be like $9,155 for tennis and $30,000 for stained glass.
Okay, and I asked the question the other day in B and F, but have either of these clubs been approached to see if they have funds in their account that they would be willing to put toward this?
I need to get my Italian cousins involved with those conversations, but we will have those.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions?
You can delete that from the records, please. Thank you.
Here. Other questions? Questions from the audience? Okay, thank you very much, Bill. Next item of business is goals. Each October, by the end of October, each of the committees needs to present to the board their goals for the year. Most of our committees just use the standard goals that are listed in description of their committee in the policy C category, C3 I think it is. But some of the clubs or some of the committees also set more specific goals. And so I'm just here to let you know we do have an extra goal from the Golf Committee. They're going to be working on approving a system for collecting contact data from outside players to be able to reach out with enticements for further play. So that's going to be their focus. And then Chartered Clubs Committee, because of their work, has 5 very specific goals that they're going to be working on. Increasing club participation in committee meetings, reviewing RR&Ps for redundancy, and implementation of association software, and updating the information on the club page on our website, and then final reviewing by an attorney and a CPA when they get that process all done. So you can find those goals, all of those, for those committees in board docs by committee, and check them out on that spot. So that's an information thing. Okay, then we do have some other business. Donna, do you have a motion to make? Do you want me to talk about this, or are you going to talk about it? You're ready? Go ahead.
Okay, I do have a motion, and the motion is regarding a change to requirement for general membership meetings for chartered clubs. The change would be there will be a minimum of 3 general membership meetings conducted during each calendar year. It previously was that it was a requirement of 4 general membership meetings, and that was quarterly. And per request of clubs and by unanimous consent of the Charter Club Committee, we are presenting a minimum requirement of 3 within a calendar year. So my motion is, after discussion by the Charter Clubs and Properties Committees and discussion and review by the Governing Board at its October 8th, 2021 workshop, I move that the Governing Board approve the inserted and deleted language on page 27 in the Charter Clubs RR&Ps as redlined.
Is there a second?
Second.
From Ann, okay. Discussion? Anything more to say, Donna?
Nothing from me.
Okay, anybody else on the questions, comments? And the only comment I have is that this was a kind of a irritation to the clubs because they were being asked to have meetings when the majority of their club members had not even come back to Sun City West. So that made it very awkward for them. So I think this was something that came from them, and I think they're all quite pleased with that new language. So let's vote. Do we have agreement here? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Please say
Aye.
opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, 605. This one is also Donna.
Thank you, Madam President. And my motion on this is per recommendation by the Charter Clubs Committee. I move that the Governing Board approve the insertion of the word activities in place of administrative, personnel, financial, or facility usage matters in policy C03, which is Standing Committees of the Governing Board, section 1.3, subsection 1.3.2 as redlined.
Okay, do we have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Lisa. Okay, Donna, do you want to talk to this one?
This was a request from staff specifically. The concern was the word personnel. That was their main concern, and it seemed logical to put in activities in place of administrative, personnel, financial, or facility usage matters. Keeping it simple.
Okay, my comment is that some of our policies that were written a long time ago, before maybe you had a staff person that was in charge of running that category. So sometimes those tasks that are put down for the governing board to take care of, or the committee to take care of, have now been taken over or are managed through staff that we have. That's kind of the way I see it. Other comments? Ann?
I just have one. Why are we redlining the little 1 to the left of 1.3.2? Because it's next to all the other ones. You see what I'm talking about?
No, because you can't see it.
I
got it.
This is simply formatting, Ann. It's just a formatting thing. I fix that when it goes into the policy.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Karen.
Any other comments? Questions?
Just a question.
Sharon?
Just a question. So are we saying that activities covers all of those things except personnel? Is that what the intent was? So when you use the word activities, you're saying that you were not really doing administrative, financial, facility usage matters, or is that now activities covers all of that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's vote. Let's start with Sharon. Well, wait a minute. Never mind. All those in favor? All right, we don't need to go one by one. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Save a little time, you know? Okay. The next two motions are delayed. What happens, and you might wonder, which I did, why these things were still in if we're delaying them. We hold some spots for information from some of the committees that meet just prior to our meeting here in case they have something ready for us. And in these two cases, their information in their two items need to go back to their committee And they need to see the exact wording before they come here. So they're just not ready. They'll come to us next month. Right, Harry? Okay. Okay, on to then 6.08, and that is Lisa.
Thank you, President Fitzsimons. After discussion by the Sports Pavilion and Bowling Committee, I move that the governing board approve the elimination of bowling policy BOO. The bowling index included the attachment B index page as redlined.
Is there a second?
There's a, oops, hold on, there is a second page also. Katie?
Is there a second to the motion? Second. Okay, Jim, thank you. Lisa, you want to talk to us about this?
No, we just, after talking with Karen and Barry, this index, this is no longer needed. So it's just decided to remove it.
And this is really the only place in our policies that we have an index inserted, so
Correct.
It just kind of doesn't fit.
It really doesn't fit, that's the bottom line.
So questions, comments from the board? Questions from the audience? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, goals attainment. We have our goals up there. We're on 7.01. This is just kind of a report back from our goal setting session that we had. We split up into groups, and each group took one of the goals and kind of worked through the details of it, and the board has copies of that in their at their spot. And what I'd just like you to do is to confer with your group, review this, and make sure that we have captured what your group said in terms of what's written down here, and then we'll get that firmed up back to Karen, and she will clean it up so that we have a clean document that we are all comfortable with. Karen?
Sue, would you mind reading the goals, because I neglected to provide it for the screen. So
Oh.
They're 4 and they're relatively short. They're at the end of the governing board.
I got it, yeah. Okay. The first one, which is actually number 2, when we get down to working to things, I guess I'll read them correctly. The first one is going to be complete/finalize tax status issues with chartered clubs. That'll be number 1. Number 2 will be develop a master plan for the community for Sun City West. Number 3 will be improve association communication, and that is broken down into different segments. And the last one is review association bylaws and policies C, L, and M, which are the ones that are not currently covered by governing board committees. So those are the 4 goals that we are working with. Okay, that's just kind of an information thing. We're continuing to work on this project. Sharon?
Sorry, but Donna, is there, under your complete and finalized tax status, a way for someone to say that they don't agree or that there's something wrong in our policies and procedures to come to you? I don't see it listed here, but how does somebody say, for example, there's something in there that's incorrect? So how do they do that? Do they just come to, well, okay, it doesn't say anything about if I'm just a member of the community and I read my bylaws and I read everything that's in there and I feel that there's an error in it, you just want them to come and talk to you?
Yes.
And then from there, what happens? Does it get taken to
Then
the
I
pay?
will do the research and make the assignment for getting an answer
Okay, thank
to
you.
that situation.
Yes, and that also brings up another point, that as you are looking through this as a director, and there are things that you didn't work on here in different groups, and you don't understand how it's written, then get that information back to either to Karen or directly to the person that's in charge of the other committees. Yeah, because, yeah. it may be clear to the person that wrote it, but not clear to anybody else. Okay, any questions on that? All right. Okay, board director comments. I'm going to start with Bill because he has some information on timelines and things like that.
Jim, are you going to talk on our meeting next week with the master plan? I can skip on that. Mr. Sloan.
Turn yourself on.
Thank you. Mr. Sloan will give a little bit of an update regarding our master plan and how our team is moving along as far as that goes. The one thing that I want to talk about is I did remove my mask as far as speaking here now, but if you look around the room, I think all of our staff members in this room are all masked up. We are one of the associations or an organization within the United States that has over 100 employees, and we are awaiting the rules and regulations coming down from OSHA as far as mask wearing goes, as far as vaccinations and employment and all those wonderful things. We've been following the trail of CDC and the medical field down this path of pandemic for well over a year now, doing as best we can to keep our facilities open, keep our facilities safe, and more importantly, keep our employees and those around us safe as well. And so I think we've done a pretty remarkable job in that realm, but we don't know what's around the corner, but we do, whether it's a safety standard that Russ and his team and prepare every day how we go to work and what we do at work and how we react at work under the safety standards of OSHA. And OSHA is, we are told, is coming out with the new rules and regulations when it comes to mask wearing, vaccinations, and proof of testing. So what those rules will be, we don't know, but we are bracing for it. But as you can see, we are prepping ourselves as we are now, providing as much safety information as we can to our employees and those visiting us in our offices and those types of things. So just a little heads up on that one, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, other comments? Sharon, you want to start? Okay, Harry?
No comments.
All right. Roberta?
Yeah, I was noticing on our YouTube channel that most of our videos don't have a closed captioning button. And that would be helpful, especially to some of us who are hard of hearing, and the voices on these that get recorded are up and down, so it's hard to tell sometimes when someone's speaking, especially those with low voices.
Is that possible, Katie?
Yes, so my understanding is that there's an algorithm that will put that into place automatically, but it depends on the views and the time that your channel's in place. So I will do some further research on that, and I'll get you a more specific answer. But that is one of the reasons we're so harsh about making sure everyone's on the mic, or if someone's not on the mic, have the speaker please repeat the question. But I will look into that further, Roberta.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, because if I want to find out how to use my Instant Pot, I go on a YouTube channel, and I mean, these aren't professional people, and they have closed captioning on their YouTube.
Okay, good suggestion. Ann?
Nothing, thank you.
Jim?
Yes, I'm as part of the master plan group, which is comprised of 7 of us, 3 board members, Harry and Sharon and I, and then 4 staff people, Pete and Kathy and Katie and Bill. And as I announced last time, we're taking data from a company that we've hired named Epic Research, and they've completed the outside input data, correct? So that's to be presented soon to us. We will be forming focus groups made up of the board members. Each of the board members will be interviewed independently by Epic, and that information will then be collated with focus groups from the community, which we're starting to form now. And if you'd like to be a part of that, if you'd email me, I'll get you on a list, and we'll put you into one of those focus groups to have your say of what's supposed to be happening over the next 10 years or so, something like that. And that's completely different. But what we're trying to do is identify traits that are happening with the next generation who will be buying our homes here, and what can we do internally to make what we have applicable to the next generation. So that kind of sums up what our goal is. And it's not an easy process because we don't have crystal balls. We look backwards, and 10 years ago, there was no pickleball in around Sun City West. So that's the dramatic changes that can happen, but we would like to get ahead of that as an association. And then also put in place the third part of our master plan is, the first one is financial. Pete and his team have done an amazing job. The next 30 years, we know how much money we should be getting if all things are equal, how much money is being spent, equipment, all of that stuff is in place. So that would be a big part of the master plan. Second part is our buildings were built out very much in Sun City West. So what does that mean to us? The third part is what amenities do we need to either focus on or change or prepare to change, those kinds of things. So that's the goal. Would that be a good summary, Bill? I think what we're trying to accomplish, and I think it's a good group working together, and Epic seems to be on top of stuff, and we'll be presenting soon.
Thank you, Jim. And I think we should put that topic on each of our agendas, so you can give an update at each time. Well, either you or Sharon or Harry. Okay, Donna, any comments?
No comment.
Lisa?
No comment.
Okay, and my comment is I want to thank the board for their hard work at our goal setting, and also the attendance at the open house and all their committee work. I think that I'm pretty demanding of their time, and I just appreciate the fact that you have come forth and are hanging in there. So thank you much. Kenny, any comments from the audience? Come up to the mic and identify yourself and your number.
Bob Den, 131585. I have a question about Kuntz and the pickleball project. I live in the neighborhood, and early this year, there was a meeting for the neighborhood scheduled, but that kept being pushed off. Next month, it's pushed off. I think all the questions I have could be answered by that meeting. Just involve the neighborhood and let us know what's going on.
Okay.
And I don't know who to approach on this.
All right, so Bill, that's your.
I will contact you prior to you leaving here today.
Perfect, thank you.
Make sure you sign in there, and then you'll know for sure who to contact. Okay, any other comments from the audience? Okay, our next meeting is a workshop on November 12th, and then our regular meeting 1 week after that on the 18th of November. So at this point, I'll adjourn the meeting.